Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. It's going to be super cool today because we are peeling back the layers, opening up the curtains for the way a designer works in terms of how to build a room from the ground up. We are going to give you some of the secret sauce that goes on behind the scenes when she works, and many designers work. This is her way of getting it done, and even what you need to do before you go shopping. And she's just an amazing designer. Back with us again, Marcia Moore joins us on the program. Hey, Marcia, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good. It's a holiday weekend. I can't wait to have a day off.
I'm hearing you, but it's so funny. It's a 3-day weekend, and I'll be hanging out with friends and doing stuff, but Memorial Day looks like it's going to rain here. So I've already planned, you know what? I'm going to work. I have a project. It's a project business idea on the side, and I keep putting it off because I don't have time. That's what I think I'm going to do. So I'm get it done.
I'm working on my house.
Yeah. Which is fine too, because there's something to be said about that feeling of, I got that off my plate. Move forward with it. Yeah. Today, we're going to look at what you call the design pyramid. What exactly is that?
So when I talk with people, the initial appointment, they're just, most people are overwhelmed with how do you start? What do I look for first? Or, what about this? Or what would you do here? And I have to kind of rein them in and say, I want you to put blinders on and quit thinking about all the elements of a room. We have to start somewhere, and we're going to start at the base of a pyramid. If you think about design as a pyramid, the base of a pyramid is the largest part of the pyramid. So think of a room. First thing you want to look for is the largest pieces in the room. Once you've looked for those, then we build our way up to the tiny stuff at the top. So if I tell them that, and one of the first things I say is pretend you've got blinders on. Because they will say, we'll choose a sofa, and then they'll say, well, what kind of lamp would we use? I'm like, we're not at lamps yet. So put those blinders on. We don't even think about that. We have to build the room from the ground up, and not think about other things until we actually get to that point where it makes sense. So that's how I start out. And this works for people if you don't have a designer or don't want to have a designer, or you're just doing something on your own. This is a great way of not being overwhelmed by all the choices.
Very interesting, and goes against what I would normally think when designing a room. Can we start with the pyramid? You want to start at the ground floor and work our way up?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Ground floor, sofa, sectional, the large area rug, all of that. Basically what it sounds like is we're talking about all the big stuff in the room. And I guess when you think about it, it makes sense. Many of us would think colors. What do we want it to feel like? What are the color on the wall? And we'll get to color at some point here in the pyramid. Yeah. But as you explained that, don't worry about the color because there's so many variations of color. There are not a lot of variations of sofas and furniture. So interesting way that you look at that.
So when I talk about what I've got on the base of the pyramid is a sofa or a sectional or a large area rug. It's not that you're going to do all of those at once. Usually we start with a sectional. Sometimes people will have a big area rug that they want to use. So that's our basis for the whole room. But if they don't have anything in the room that we're keeping, then I always start with the sofas or the sectional. That's the biggest pieces in the room. And so what I tell people before I get there, and this is good for somebody who's not using a designer too, is before you even think about what furniture you want to have in here, is create a Pinterest board so that you can just free associate on Pinterest all the pictures they have, look at living rooms everywhere, and see what you like and what you don't, and start putting things on that board of what you like. And eventually you'll figure out what your design style is and what colors you like and what you want your room to feel like. So that really helps before you go look at furniture and get overwhelmed with all the choices.
When we're working on the foundation of the pyramid, the largest part of the pyramid, and obviously the largest items in the room, How do you approach that in terms of color, in terms of style, patterns, and things like that?
So I don't even worry about the fabric for it to begin with. I want to start with what style of sectional do you want? Are you the person who loves the big rolled arms, or do you like straight up and down narrow arms? Do you want lots of fluffy cushions and a whole bunch of pillows, or do you like that streamlined one big huge pillow on the seat? So it's more about the style and the different things that you like, or how you want to function in a room. If you're very short, we don't need a really deep sofa. We need a sofa that doesn't have a really deep seat. So there's all those questions that come to begin with, and then we figure out what kind of look you really want, and then we start from there. And once we've decided on that sofa, then we'll decide on the second part of the pyramid, is the chairs to go with it, or big, huge cabinets if you're going to have like a big, tall etagere kind of piece in your room, all those big pieces. So once I've figured out the chairs that go with it, then I'll start looking at fabrics to go with, to use for those two pieces, and kind of figure out the color scheme then.
It seems, reasonable, now that we're working our way up the pyramid, that now those items are getting smaller as we go on. Okay, so we got the lounge chairs, large cabinets, things like that. What's next up?
So then you want all the little tables that go with your sofa. You have a side table on either end of the sofa or between the chairs. You might have a coffee table. You might have a console table, or some people call that a sofa table, behind your sofa. Or you might have another piece of furniture. So sometimes a sofa table will be against a wall somewhere. So that's the next thing that I choose. Now that we've got our fabrics and the style of sofa, then I can choose the style of those other pieces of furniture that coordinate really well with that sofa.
How do you know if you need coffee tables or side tables? Does it really just come down to personal choice?
Yes and no. Everybody needs some kind of tables. You can't just have a sofa with nothing to put a drink on or have a lamp on. But whether you need a coffee table, some people want an ottoman, a couple of ottomans rather than a coffee table. Sometimes I'll use a bunch of little tables, different sizes and different textures, rather than just one coffee table, so that they can be moved around and used independently when you maybe have large groups of people. So that's one of the other talking points, is how do you use this room? Is this just where you watch TV? Is this where you entertain more formally? Your kids do homework here? How does this room function on a daily basis?
I would assume that if you left something out, you finish the whole room, we're done, you can circle back and say, I want a coffee table. Don't have an ottoman, so that's, you don't have to worry about that. But certainly for this part of the pyramid, you can jump back into it.
Right.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. Once you've got the big pieces, then the others are a little more fluid. If you haven't already chosen an area rug, now that I know what furniture I have, what big pieces I have, then I'll know what size area rug I need. Until I know what those pieces of furniture are, I don't know what size area rug I need. I might know what the maximum size I can use is based on the size of the room, but I want a rug that fits perfect, that the furniture fits perfectly on. So that would be my next decision to make, is what size rug and what's that rug look like.
Gotcha. All right, next up on the pyramid, we are talking about area rugs, but smaller ones.
No, that is the big area rug. If you haven't chosen it to begin with. So an area rug is one of those things that can be fluid in the structure of the pyramid. Some people already have an area rug, so then we work from that to begin with, and it's a huge part of the room. But if you don't have one, then I wait until I've got furniture to choose that area rug.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw a large area rug with the sofa sectional at the bottom of the pyramid. So we are talking about the same area rug potentially here?
Correct. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Window treatments then is next up.
Yeah. So window treatments, depending on all the other colors that you've got in your room and how this room functions and who's going to use it. There's a lot of different window treatments. Or do you want shutters? Do you want drapes? Do you just want Roman shades? or do you want nothing on your windows? It depends on, where you live, how much sun comes in. Do you have dogs that are going to scratch on a nice window treatment, or cats that are going to ruin a drapery? So, part of the discussion. Kids and animals are always part of the discussion.
It is so true. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've shared that I moved about just coming up on 2 years. And in my daughter's room, she wanted darkening drapes. And a lot of teens just want to block out the light and do their thing. I never realized it until I looked in. We don't really go to the window that often because those drapes are there. And I moved them a little bit just to see if it was raining. And to your point, Marcia, the cats got to them. Didn't even know. Didn't even know. I know we
cats
talked.
Love to hide behind drapes.
Oh, well, I know they occasionally go up there, and I think it's cute. They're looking outside, maybe seeing a bird. Great. But I didn't realize that when I moved the drapes that they were shredded behind them. I'm like, what is this? What is going on here? But it is part of having cats and pets to be expected. You're going to have some stuff going on there. So, to your point, had I thought about that and talked to you, there probably would have been shades or something. But then again, how much can you block out the light with that stuff? Probably not so much.
Yeah. The room darkening curtains, blackout curtains are the best way of getting rid of sunlight for a bedroom. Yeah.
All right. Working our way up to the top of the pyramid, the design pyramid. What's next?
So next on the list, I have art and wallpaper, which is art, wallpaper is really art on your wall. So those kind of things are important because now we have our color scheme thought out. So unless you already have a lot of art you want to use, then that's when I find the art or the wallpaper that coordinates really well with everything else that we're putting in the room. And I know what kind of wall space I have left. If we've got any big cabinets that are using up a wall, or we've just got a lot of blank wall space. So I know how much art I need to find for the room.
Have you ever been requested to start with the art and work
my God. Yeah, I've got a great story for that. So I worked with this lady once. They had just moved to St. Louis from, I don't know, Wisconsin or something. And she had a picture of a piece of art that she loved. It was a painting that she loved, and she wanted to use it in her living room. That was our color scheme. So I had to take the painting itself and figure out how to create that whole room. So that was like the scariest thing I've ever done is, eventually that piece of art finally made its way to St. Louis and it all worked.
Wow.
The painting, the colors in the painting were good, but yeah, that was really scary.
Do you always have to coordinate the room with the art? Or you should?
No, not necessarily. There are a lot of more traditional homes, and they might have some contemporary art. But I don't care what your art is. It's whatever you love. To me, the colors need to work with the rest of the room. If you've got some bright pink, huge piece of art that you love, and there's a lot of reds in your room, then maybe those aren't going to work. It's not going to work in that room. We put it somewhere else.
I never thought of it. You have usually many rooms. I have a large piece of art, even hard to explain, came from the previous house. I wouldn't be able to put that in. I could put it in a bedroom, but it might not work, in a smaller room. So, but it was one of those pieces of art that had different colors. So I had a lot to work with. I wasn't limited where, like you said, a lot of red. Now you're kind of pigeonholed into that color scheme.
So I had another client, they were building a home, and they like 8 by 8 feet by 8.5 feet piece of art, really cool original painting. And we had to make sure there was a wall somewhere in the house that was big enough to house that art. And we had to create large enough front doors in order to get the art inside. So the front doors were oversized, and we had a wall in the kitchen by the breakfast area that would house that piece of art. So,
remember the movie Jaws where they said, we're going to need a bigger boat. In that case, we're going to need a bigger house.
Yep.
For the art. All right. Working our way up to the top of the pyramid. We have next, interesting, that I didn't expect to see lighting. You have lighting in there.
Yeah. So lighting is lamps on your tables, or if we need to add a chandelier in the room, or if we need to add can lights. Again, the placement of your furniture sometimes dictates what kind of lighting you need. So that's why it's further up and it's a smaller kind of item. So if you're not into lots of tables and don't want a lot, I have one client who doesn't like lamps at all. She feels like it clutters a room. So we're not using lamps in that home. It's more ceiling light or a big floor lamp. But yeah, so that's and also the kind of bulb you use with the kelvins of the LED bulb, getting into lighting here, changes with what kind of color scheme I have sometimes.
I've reversed my lighting affinity from never wanted lamps. You know, when hi-hats became big, every place I went to, they were there. I was like, yeah, I got hi-hats. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's all it's light. All it's light. And I love a lot of light. However, now I'm seeing it in a different way, that it's got a cold feel to it. And when you put that table lamp, it just warms things up. I know it's clutter, but it does make a difference. It
makes a huge difference. And if you, older we get, the harder it is to read without lighting, good lighting.
Yeah.
So having that reading lamp is important too, or a sconce next to your bed to read by.
Well, and absolutely, the sconce is one of those things you got to plan on if you don't want to see the wire.
Correct.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A little bit of work there. Next up, interesting. I never thought of this, and this is why you do what you do, accessories.
Yeah, so that's the final part of a room, is all those little pieces that you put around that make it feel like it's homey and finished. If you've got bare tables, it's not going to look good. If you don't have a few nice, interesting pillows on your sofa, it's going to look pretty bare. So all of those little accessories are the final thing that I choose for a room.
Can you give us in just a moment different accessories? What comes under that category? Things that maybe we're not thinking of?
So any kind of like magazines on a coffee table, or candlesticks and candles on them, a piece of sculpture, family photos, books in a, all of those things that just sit around in a room.
Gotcha. And next up, we have at the very top of the pyramid, we're having a little bit of a internet issue.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up. Yeah.
Yeah. Paint at the very top.
Paint. Yeah. Now, paint could come before accessories. That's kind of like you don't have to have your accessories before you choose paint. But paint comes last, because there are millions of paint colors. I can find a paint color that's going to go with anything else that I've chosen to put in this room. But if I start with paint and then try and coordinate everything else to that paint color you love, it won't work. It just won't work. So paint is last. It's one of the first things you put in a room, but it's one of the last things I choose, because then I get the everything coordinates and works well together when I choose the paint last.
Now that we've got to the top of the design pyramid, and this is all about building a room from the ground up, shopping. Now, we mentioned a few things there before, putting the blinders on. I want to go back to that for a second. When you say that, how do you mean, the blinders when you're looking at the room?
So when you're going to go shopping, you have to have some kind of a plan. Otherwise, you go into a big, huge furniture store and you're just overwhelmed with everything that's there, and you can't make a decision, or you make the wrong ones. So what I want somebody to do before they ever start shopping is to create a floor plan, so that they realize how big their room is, and they know that they are only going to be able to fit a 105-inch sofa. Their 110 won't fit the room. So they've got some idea of sizing. And then the second thing is, as we talked about, is research styles and looks on Pinterest, so that you're not just going in blind to a store and looking at everything. You have an idea of what you like. And the third thing is your color scheme. If you go into it knowing I hate blue, I'm not going to put blue in this room, or I love blue, so I'm going to go look for blue stuff. So then the fourth thing is the blinders, because when I've been with clients at a store, I will say, okay, we're going to go look at sofas, and they go, oh, wow, that's a cool lamp. And, oh, I love that ottoman. Oh my God, look at that wallpaper. So it's like, okay, put your blinders on. This works really well with people who have ADHD, which I had worked with a woman who had that one. She said, I was just amazed at how you could get me to focus. So I say, put your blinders on. We are only looking at sectionals now. It doesn't matter what else you see. It's not important right now. Do not look at it. Just a sofa.
Yep.
And then we get to the chairs. Just a chair. Don't look at anything else.
Have a mission, complete the mission, on to the next. Like it's almost the squirrel thing where you see a squirrel, they're like, looking all over the place. And you know what? I could see how overwhelming that could be because you go into the store, it's exciting. You got a new room, you're working on it. It's like you're here, but then you're here. I totally, I don't believe I have ADHD at all. I totally would be doing that. I would lose focus because it's overwhelming. There's so many different things. Right.
And the other thing that happens is they'll like, oh, I came to go to shopping today and I couldn't make any decisions, but I like this lamp, so I bought it because they just feel like they have to buy something. And then we end up returning that lamp because it doesn't work in the room. Right. They chose it out of order.
Yeah, well, that's why there's a plan. But above and beyond all of this, it doesn't mean when somebody works with the design pyramid or they have all these tips on what to do before you go shopping, it doesn't mean that we all have that designability in us to know what goes with what variables we have. I like to think I have a little bit of an eye for color, but when you start introducing patterns and things, I get overwhelmed. I'm like, I think that goes, but I'm not really sure. Then I turn into the squirrel at that point because now I'm second guessing myself and now I'm all over the place, which is why you need to hire a designer and not even worry about that stuff. You're walking into the store with the design pyramid in mind, thousands of dollars that we're looking at here when you add up the sofa, the sectional, the lounge chairs, the tables, the area rug, the art, the accessories, the paint, paint alone. Oh my gosh, what paint costs nowadays. You want to be prepared, and there's a lot going on here. So highly suggested that you do it right, unless you think you can do it alone or you think you have some design ability and it's worked for you in the past. I've said to you many times before, should have hired you along the way. And when I'm in between houses right now, you'll get a call from me when I put the bid on where I'm going.
Gotcha. I'll be there. I'll come to you for that one.
Yes. And where I am there, it's a challenge. There's not a lot of inventory and it's just got to hit it at the right moment. How do we find you? How do we find you, Marcia?
MarciaMooreDesign.com, spelled MarciaMoore. Design is singular, no S on the end of it, .com. Everything's there.
It's an exciting time when you decide to redesign a room. It shouldn't be stressful. So take some of these tips and work with Marcia on that. Thank you for being here. This was great. I learned a lot.
You're very welcome.
It's like, thanks for sharing the secret sauce with us. It's so cool.
Sure.
All right. We'll catch up next time.
Okay, thanks.
We'll
Bye.
be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.